so much, it has to be taken so serious, right? Like between the research I do for my book and my doctorate and the business and all that, I just want to have a night where it's probably like people with golf or whatever. I want to have a night where like I have 5 friends, different fields that could just go do comedy improv stuff. I do, because there's the creativity of it. There's the camaraderie of it. You do have to take aspects of it serious. It's not like whose line is it anyway? Like there are some tight rules, but I really want that. I've never had that in my life. I've never lived in a city with like 5 or 6 good friends that wanted to go do something. And that's very much something I want in my life. Welcome to the Art of Coaching Podcast, a show aimed at getting to the core of what it takes to change attitudes, behaviors, and outcomes in the weight room, boardroom, classroom, and everywhere in between. I'm your host, Brett Bartholomew. I'm a performance coach, keynote speaker, and the author of the book, Conscious Coaching. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student interested in all aspects of human behavior and communication. I want to thank you for joining me, and now let's dive into today's episode. So I think it's not a huge stretch to say that at some point, all of us have had some kind of injury at some point in our life, whether a major injury that required surgery or something minor or something that just sidelined you for a bit. Well, if you followed for a while, I actually had surgery last November. I had a torn labrum. I had one for about 6 years. It came from just a contact-based injury. I was doing a Turkish get-up. Somebody pushed another athlete into me from behind. Kettlebell went one way, my body went another. Torn labrum, right? Things happen in life. And even though that can be frustrating, right? Like we have to deal with it as it comes. So I ended up having to get surgery, was in a sling for about 3 months, experienced a pretty tremendous amount of atrophy. One of the things that helped me through that were these new BFR cuffs from one of our latest sponsors, Saga. And, you know, I'm very careful about making sure that anybody that we partner with in the podcast is stuff that I actually use. You're not going to hear me touting some kind of licorice or some kind of supplement that I don't use or some kind of like notebook that has some magical powers, right? I use these things. So if you're somebody that's gone through some sort of injury, or you don't even have to have been injured, if you travel a lot, if you're a fitness enthusiast, if you're in the performance world, anything like that, these BFR cuffs are tremendous. They can help you increase muscle strength, increase muscle size. And I don't mean like become some bodybuilder. I mean, it can help with atrophy situations like I had, improve aerobic capacity and accelerate recovery. Now, if you're wondering what BFR is, we're going to go through that on some more, on some future episodes, but just know for now, I want you to check these guys out. They're doing something really unique, saga.fitness. Again, saga.fitness. And you can use code BRETT20, BRETT 20 on anything there. So check it out. Stay tuned to future episodes because we're going to introduce you more to our new partner, Saga. All right, here we go with today's episode. Welcome to a special edition of the Art of Coaching Podcast, guys. You know me, I am Brett Bartholomew, and I am here with Director of All Sports, Everything Sports Performance, World Class Sports Performance, and More Sports, Ali Kershner of Stanford University. Welcome, Ali.
What's up, my friend?
Listen, guys, this is the deal. If you've listened for a while, you know that Ali has been a guest on the show. This time, the tables are turned. I'm a pretty private person, except for what I share on the podcast. But there have been a lot of folks that ask a lot of different questions, wide range. And we've wanted to do like a Q&A episode for a long time. Just air out the dirty laundry, talk about stuff I may have never talked about before, answer some of the tougher questions that I maybe haven't had a chance to answer before. I do a lot of Q&As, or at least I did on Instagram a lot of times. And Instagram gives you like 15 seconds to respond, which is really poor context, which is why we started our Art of Coaching All Access Channels thing. If you guys are interested, by the way, go to artofcoaching.com/channels. But we also wanted to do a podcast. So Ali is one of the best interviewers I know. She's a very inquisitive person. She's a very thoughtful person. And I've given her carte blanche to literally ask me anything she wants. And this isn't one of those things where I've scripted answers before. We have like bounced around a couple questions that were asked a lot, but she gets to freewheel and deal however she wants. So Ali, is there any context I missed in that one?
No, but I do think the listeners should be pretty excited because, like you said, I don't know the last time you got asked any of these questions, if ever. So I think it'll be fun to let the listeners in on some of the dirty secrets, pull back the curtain,
The
and
dirty secrets. People
very
love dirty secrets.
Well, I was thinking about how I would want to start asking you questions. I was like, maybe I'll toss them a softball, maybe I'll go right in. And knowing the kind of show that this is, we're going right in.
We're going in.
You ready?
That's a little Wayne voice. Yep.
All right. What do you think about the strength and conditioning field right now? And why is it more important than ever before for coaches to understand the business side and quit limiting their influence?
I still think the field is one of the most resistant industries there is. I think people get too caught up in, I'm passionate about this thing. I self-identify with this thing. I've said it before. A lot of coaches get into it because they liked training with weights or they were athletes themselves and they're very competitive. And so, but you don't always want to turn a passion into a profession. I think passion can join what you do from a professional standpoint, but there's a lot of things we're passionate about that people aren't necessarily good at. And so let's imagine somebody gets into coaching because they love guiding people. Well, that's great, but it's still a business. There are still contracts to be signed. You're paid a salary. You have bills you have to pay. And I think that that's another thing is that the internships that happen in the field are very much they indoctrinate people to the training side and the coaching side, but they don't really get people ready for the business side. And so people don't know how to handle it when they sign 1 to 2 to 3 year contracts, or, the moving is really exciting when you're young. And I've moved a great deal for grad school and jobs and internships. But when you have a family, at some point you need some security, and people really don't know how to talk about what they're worth. So, I don't think that there's an industry out there. I mean, you're in an industry. It is a business. Being good at coaching is not enough. You need to be good at the coaching business, because it's hard to leave a legacy if you don't even last long enough in that. And just a lot of really, 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 really broke coaches. And that is not a knock on their intelligence. That's not a knock on anything. Some of them have been hit with, any of us could get hit with something at any different time, but it is an issue if they're broke because they just thought, hey, I'm passionate about it. I love it. I'm going to get paid. That's not how that works.
No, yeah. I mean, I think you hit on this all the time with your content. It's just interesting to hear, I think, from our listeners' perspective, why maybe, or what the inspiration is for you in terms of what you're doing now. Like, why cross over into this leadership, branding, business side of things instead of just staying where you were in strength and conditioning?
I think I remember hearing an interview from Jay-Z one time when they asked him something similar. They're like, how do you walk this line between being an artist and being this large corporation, especially because an artist he had signed, Kanye West, was very much against corporations. And Jay-Z said, I think at some point you've got to be able to walk that line if you want your work to transcend. I mean, there are a lot of I've always taken a lot of inspiration from the music industry. You look at Prince, and I didn't listen to a ton of Prince's music, but Prince owned his own catalog. You look at Jay-Z, he owned his own catalog. He knew that he didn't want to just make great art for other people. He wanted to have something for his family, as well. And so, when I look at coaching, I got into coaching because I almost lost my life due to poor medical care, where I was fit in this one-size-fits-all system and there was poor communication. Well, how many other people have dealt with that in their life? And so for me, coaching's a vehicle, and I don't think that there's many fields where it's like you're supposed to evolve, right? Like if somebody's like, oh man, you've changed. I'm like, well, hell yeah, I've changed. Like, what's the point of working hard if you don't change? Like, my goal isn't to just die on the gym floor. My goal is to open up opportunities for other coaches, like that's one part of my life is being a coach. I can walk and chew gum. I can do other things. And I think you're supposed to do other things. If you're to say, hey, I'm just limited to being this and only this in this context for the rest of my life, I think that's doing yourself a disservice. I mean, and that's just me. That's nothing against coaches that maybe want to do just what they're doing now for the rest of their life and nothing is different. But I think whether you go speak at a conference or whether you mentor somebody or whether you create, I'm big on the concept of legacy because I'd like to make a difference when I'm gone. So that was a book, and that's the courses. These are things that will outlive me. And one day my kid, he might miss me someday and he can like pull up one of Dad's courses and hear my voice or hear this conversation with you. And I made a YouTube video, literally for him in case I get hit by a bus tomorrow. And, it's lessons from Dad. And so I just think you have to evolve in what you do, and anything less is to shortchange yourself.
I completely agree with you, but I'm curious, as somebody that's still in the strength and conditioning field right now, can you walk me through what was that moment, or what was the inciting incident that made you strike it out on your own? Like, you were with, companies like API and you had been a collegiate strength coach. Why leave?
Yeah,
what was that moment?
I think there's a lot of people that I don't think I know, because I get it all the time in my DMs. People that reach out, and for those of you not familiar, Athletes Performance, or now Exos, was really my first full-time job outside of being a paid grad assistant and things like that. And I used to train fighters in exchange for my boxing training when I was in college and things. But my first, true job training like high level athletes and what have you was API. And it's funny, people always think that when you leave, there had to be a big blow up, that there had to be an issue. And I think what's even more uncomfortable is I still have a lot of friends that work at Athletes Performance and Exos and what have you, is, I'll hear from them. Like, there's rumors from people that will say this, and like people will just like make things up. It's wild. And I just remember, I'd been there nearly 6 years, I think 5 and some change if we're really counting. And, I was in a position where I wanted to do more. I'd been involved in coaching. I'd worked with youth. I'd worked with high school kids. I'd worked with pro football, pro baseball, UFC fighters, military, average Joes. I even got to work with surgeons that were fellows at the Andrews Institute, all these things. And then I got involved in their education. And that was great. It was awesome being able to go out in the world and work in different countries. And we would do this typically when the facility was a little quieter, when most of the major sports were in season. So let's call it like September, October, if memory serves me correct. And, it just got to a point where that company, there was nowhere else to go. And Liz and I knew we wanted to have kids. And like any company, they had a limit to what they could pay. And I always made it a point, like I was grateful for what I had there, but it was just basic economics. We needed to make more money. And they didn't really have an opportunity to be able to move me into a role where I could do that. We had a lot of conversations with a lot of the leadership there, great people. One of them was I'll never forget his name, is Jeff Sassone. Jeff would like let me come in and talk business with him weekly at one point. And he never treated me like a stupid coach. He never looked at me like somebody that didn't understand this stuff or whatever. He was very transparent, always had a smile on his face. Just a really, really good guy. But they were also pretty upfront, like, listen, there's not a lot of avenues for this. And at that time, I'd started getting more people asking me to speak. People had become a little bit more aware of my work for whatever reason. And I knew I wanted to write a book, and that wasn't really going to be a possibility there for reasons that were, valid for what they have to do as an organization, right? Like if you do that and then other people want to do that and whatever, and they had certain kind of code of operations that just wasn't going to work. And so it was no hard feelings. It was just like, okay, like it sounds like this is going to be pretty tough to find a win-win, So there were other opportunities that came up both in the pro sports side and private sector. And, the people that I spoke with, like we ended on a good note, now, of course, there's always hurt feelings when people leave and things. And I think there's some people, anybody that's left a company or an organization knows that there's some people that are going to try to, I think, poison the well a little bit. And I'm not going to get into who those people are because it doesn't matter. But it becomes convenient for them and their purposes to make you look like a bad guy. But a lot of that falls on, it's pretty challenging to do. Like when you consider my book, Conscious Coaching and other things, when I'm pretty effusive in my praise of that place. I'm well aware that I wouldn't be the coach that I am without the experiences I had there and what they risked. But yeah, it's just funny. I think people want to make it all out to be a blow up. And there are good and bad things about every company. Like, are you kidding? Like with Art of Coaching, you've you've volunteered and done some stuff with us and what have you. You know, I'm a really hard person to work with or for, because it's a very self-competitive atmosphere here. And so, you kidding, right? If I'm in this field 20, 25 years more, you don't think I'll have people that'll be like, that Brett guy, you know, he's for the birds. So yeah, I think once we just kind of realized that we wanted a little bit more control over what we did, much like the music industry example, like, again, we didn't want people, there were other opportunities, but somebody was like, well, if you write a book, it's ours. Or, hey, if you speak, you got to pay us a certain amount. And it just, a lot of it came about control. And I didn't want somebody to have that much control over what me and my wife were doing. And so, yeah, it was a no-brainer. It was just time to bet on ourselves and go a different road.
You know, I have to imagine that a lot of coaches who are tied to organizations or, you know, big names might feel like this because, you know, inherently going out and having a personal brand, the school, the organization that they work for, they might resist that only because they're not sure what that person is going to go do or put out if it's tied to their personal brand. So what would you say to somebody that works within an organization that wants to write a book, that wants to have a blog, that wants to have a personal brand, and their organization's coming back to them and saying, pump the brakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. I think there are some people that jump into a company and are like, right now, I want to be some star and I want to have a brand. And it's like, you know, chill. Like there's a time and place for that. Now, granted, if somebody comes into Art of Coaching, I don't want Art of Coaching to be all about me, right? Like I want to have somebody else. I will very much smile at the day when somebody in Art of Coaching is requested to run an apprenticeship that isn't me. If somebody's like, you know, hey, I really like Ali to do it. Beautiful. Like, I want a tag team partner. I want other people to do that. Now, at the same time, I want those people to play for the team. You know, I want you to shine. I want you to have a brand within our brand for sure, but don't be a dick, right? Like, don't go out and try to do side deals under the table. Like, I'm very much one of those people that I don't consider our company to be successful unless you are successful as well. Like, I want you to be able to pay the bills. I want you to be able to do more than pay the bills. I want you to feel like you're recognized and validated. You should be able to have the baton passed to you so much that it wouldn't even make sense for you to go want to do your own thing, because you can have your own thing within this. I go back to record labels, right? Like, and you know me, like I'm a huge hip hop guy. When my favorite rapper, Eminem, was signed to Dr. Dre, Aftermath Records, he had shady Aftermath Records. He was able to sign people he wanted. He signed 50 Cent. 50 Cent created G-Unit Records, but G-Unit was under the shady Aftermath label and imprint. And they're usually signed to a record deal, right? They have a 3-album deal or a 4-album deal or whatever, and then they renegotiate the contract. And this goes back to, again, the world of performance and just basic business and economics. Me winning doesn't mean you losing, and vice versa. You just have to structure these things in an intelligent way, but like, don't go in and try to chew that off right off the bat. Like, give value to the organization, learn their way, be a good representative, ambassador of that, you know, and then be able to kind of carry that flag. And I think that people really don't know how to do that well anymore. And it's this fine balance. Because I remember when I went on my own, one of the warnings I got is, well, we think you're moving too quick. And I'm like, yo, like, I've been here half a decade. And I'm not saying that there's a certain timetable, but don't tell me that's too quick. You know, like, I've thought about this. This isn't, hey, you know, I've trained some pro athletes and now I think I'm hot shit. You know, like I very much bided my time and tried to do what we could financially. I mean, we were renting, I've never said this, we were renting rooms in our, what was it? I think it was a 3-bedroom house. We had a 3-bedroom starter home in Phoenix, and we were renting 2 of those rooms out. And Phoenix has a pretty average cost of living. And so we were renting 2 of those rooms out pretty much in perpetuity to try to sock away extra income for that. And so, yeah, you have to be patient and pragmatic, know when the time is, have honest conversations. If you've been there a little bit longer, expect some things on the back end, right? Like when our stuff did take off, did we hear people that were very detached from certain companies that they didn't know me and whatever, reach out and kind of threaten some things? We were like, yeah. And that was interesting, because it was like, yo, you think I'm going to go for what you're doing? Like, at least pay attention to what we're doing. Like, I'm not trying to make country music, you know, that's not my bag, you know? And so it's just a very defensive space we live in, instead of people being like, let's find a way to do business together. You know, there's people that I won't mention on air yet that we're going to collaborate, and they're in a different space than us. But somebody could consider us competitive in some ways. And we're working on a way to do great business together later this year. Like, I don't understand this whole competition scarcity thing. It seems kind of like a loser mentality to me, but it is what it is. And a lot of it's just impatience.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Thiel said competition is for losers, or there is no such thing as competition, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, you mentioned speaking, and you kind of have talked about cross collaborating and getting into different fields. And I know that companies like Microsoft have asked you to come in to speak. So you're definitely, you're crossing over into a different space than most coaches do, potentially. Do you ever go into these leadership events or where you're asked to speak and feel like you don't belong?
Always. Yeah. Especially like when I did one with Microsoft was awesome. Couldn't have been more welcoming, what have you. Once I went into a large financial institution, and they were great too. The hostesses and everything like that. But I mean, I'm in this big hotel, smells like bad cologne, a lot of really nice suits, definitely like the opening scene of one of those movies that you could imagine. And you kind of have a chip on your shoulder because the first few things you're at, like I'm asked to speak on communication, behavior, and this in particular was about like the role that AI was going to play in finance. Like I think in the next couple of years, AI is going to replace over 100,000 jobs in the U.S. financial sector alone. And so it was, how can this company get their folks better at building buy-in so the human capital they have is still able to maintain those relationships? Because when people talk money, they're still going to want to talk to an advisor. They're still going to want to do those things. But the minute I was there, people just wanted to ask me like, oh, what was it like training Patrick Chung or Richie Incognito, or who do you think is going to win tonight, the Patriots or the Giants? And or, hey, what can I do to get a six pack again? I kind of lost it once I got in the court. And I'm like, I'm bombarded with sports performance and fitness questions. And in the meantime, like I'm at the dinner before trying to help understand their world more so that I can create an increasingly relevant presentation that they can apply. And so, I think the biggest thing that I had to learn and kind of choke back on my ego was, to my knowledge, I'm still I'm one of the only strength and conditioning coaches to venture out into these other spaces. And I don't say that as like a chest thumping thing. Like I'll ask. I'll ask when I go there, hey, do you get any people in the sports performance? And we hear a lot of like fitness or things like that. And we see military, right, with Goggins and Jocko Willink. And we see people in academia like the Brene Browns and, folks like, and the Adam Grants. But it's very, very early on, it was very, very hard for me to pierce through certain crowds because people have no idea what a strength coach is. And the concept of that, they think we're gym people. It took helping them understand, when I have 30 people on a field that I'm leading through a training session that collectively are worth more than $350 million in contracts, that's like assets under management, right? And when I can start to bridge the gap with that, the conversation changes. But it did get very frustrating early on when I went out on my own. On one end, like fighting off strength coaches saying, oh, you're a sellout, you're this and that. And granted, small contingent, right? But the small contingent, when you're listening to it, seems bigger because you're more defensive about it. And then yet they don't know you're trying to open up a new space for them. And then on the other hand, I'm still fighting the rebranding, remarketing effort. I mean, I lost out on a $20,000 speaking gig one time because somebody looked at my media kit, and this was in esports, and was like, oh, we don't want a fitness person. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't do fitness. And they're like, well, it says strength and conditioning coach. Like, we don't really want that. I'm like, and that's where it's like, it's bullshit if you tell your kids people won't judge a book by its cover. In our world, people will only more and more. Of course they do. That's why people spend a lot of money designing really great covers for books. But yeah, I'll leave it at that because otherwise, I mean, I could just keep rambling. But that was the main thing that I would say comes to mind.
Well, one of my favorite episodes that you've done is with Michael Tucker. And I think the thing that really crystallized it for me was when you explained to Michael Tucker how storytelling and coaching are the same or very similar, right? And he even said to himself, he's like, I had never thought of it that way. And when I hear you talk about branching into other fields and putting feelers out into the business world, it's the same thing. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to walk people through it. Hey, this is how coaching and what I do is similar to what you do. And hopefully that barrier will be broken down. But you did just mention books and covers. So I kind of want to ask you a couple questions about both conscious coaching and the new book you have coming up. So, first of all, almost 4 years since you published Conscious Coaching. Why do you think it's continued to do so well, given that most self-published books and self-published authors tend to, maybe stay at 100 copies or less?
Yeah, I think relatable character, right? I think that I very much try to show the world that I'm an imperfect leader. I have no problem with that. And I think that there's so many people that have gone through their own things. I don't think I know when that book came out and people read about my hospitalization. I heard everything from drug addict, sex addict, and whether people think that's a real thing or not. I'm not going to debate, right? Like these are people that reach out to me, drug addict, sex addict, depression, suicide, people reaching out to me about these things. And, so I think when you have a relatable character in a story that's gone through some things, that's critical. I think it's also just timely. I think that it's one of the first books that operationalized the fact that there are people with a lot of different personalities in this world, a lot of different frames of view and points of view, and you're going to have to adapt to them because it's not about what you know, it's about what they understand. And that's been written in a million books before mine or what have you, but I don't think a lot of them gave like tactical advice, at least not a lot of the ones that I read. And I have a pretty extensive bookshelf, although I'm not egocentric enough to think I've read them all. But, you read a lot of these things that, they give you warnings or they give you principles or what have you, but it's a different thing to have tactics. And I think when you look at the archetypes, and even though we make a point that they're fluid, they're not static, hearing from other coaches who have struggled with coaches and those personalities, but hey, here's how you can recognize them. Here's how you can work through it. Here's how you can do that. But the number one thing seems to be the story that gets people. And so I think just hopefully creating something that celebrates the benefits of imperfection and the fact that like everything that is broken is not useless is pretty big. It doesn't glorify it. It doesn't make people feel like they have to go through some trauma to be useful. But yeah, I just think that, and to that point, much like the second book will be, it's a bit polarizing, right? Like there are some people in the training community that got really defensive, thinking that like, since I write a book about this, it must mean I don't like that. Again, the whole I win, you lose thing. And that's scary. I think that unearthed a lot of insecurities in the coaching community. So people wanted to argue about it. And there were people that didn't even read the book. But yeah, I would say the hospital story is my best guess at probably why it's done so well. But hopefully also just because it's been useful. I hope it's been useful to people.
Looking back on it 4 years later, is there anything that you would change about it right now if you were going to republish it as a 2.0 copy that comes out tomorrow?
No, I mean, not really. I've thought about it because people ask me, oh, are you going to update it or whatever? I'm like, yo, it's not even 5 years old, and other than musicians like remastering, their albums, if they're super old, it's not like they go back and, add a bunch of songs to the album. I was gonna say Michael Jackson's Thriller is Thriller, but I understand with the controversy, Michael Jackson, not a great example. Elvis Presley, whatever. Miles Davis, use whoever you want to use. There might be bonus cuts on the album or what have you, but no, I kind of believe in that thing's out there. It's done. I don't have a desire to add more archetypes. That what I decided to do is move things to a different medium, right? So like what I wanted to change about it, we added into Bought In, the online course, which is very much for all intents and purposes, the sequel. So when people were like, when are you going to write a conscious coaching 2? I'm like, I have. It's called Bought In. And it's an online course because I also believe that people you have to learn through different mediums. You got a book. Great. Put the book away. Now do the online course. It's got exercises where you got to apply stuff. Great. You've done the online course. Now do a workshop. And so I just think that these things have to be sequential, much like the way we consume entertainment has changed, right? Like not many people watching VHSs anymore, right? Then they go to a DVD or a Blu-ray and then it's streaming and now it's Oculus and what have you. And so engage in different mediums. There doesn't always need to be, I think another thing is people were like, well, you should have done conscious coaching for business. You should have done conscious coaching for golf and basketball. I'm like, God, that's a way to milk a market. Like and that just seems exhausting. Like I'm not just like an author by trade, right? So to do that and then to just feel cheap to me, it's not something I wanted to do.
It would turn into chicken soup for the coach's soul.
Right. And like, I don't want to ABC this stuff. Like speaking to like rhyme schemes and lyrics. Like I I'd much rather be like a Drake or a Jay-Z or a Tupac than a Migos, and I want to make something that hits and sticks to the ribs a little bit more than those kinds of things.
I think Migos is going to be offended.
Yeah, well, if I get to the point where Migos is like, hey, I'll be like, hey, Migos, come on over and let's talk about it, and we'll do a podcast.
Maybe we'll get a retweet from Migos for this episode.
Retweet Migos. Wham, wham, wham. That's the
so okay. So you mentioned your second book. I'm curious. I've heard you talk about it, me personally, but maybe tell whoever's listening to this, is this going to be similar to conscious coaching? Is it going to be different? Is there anything you could give us as like a sneak peek?
Yeah, no, I don't think, similar or different in it'll depend on the context and people that view that. No, this is something that's pretty different. I think that, again, it's going to be something that I've called it several times. People are going to say it's not as good as your first and what have you. Cause guess what? Like, I can't tell the story of my hospitalization again, I didn't get stabbed since then. I haven't been shot. And so like, if somebody's expecting some like really revealing, life-changing story from me again, that's not going to happen. That's not the book. The book's not about me. The book is, about, this idea that we live in this world that is very gray area now. Greatness is in the gray area, yet there's always dichotomies around us of what's good and bad. We've never lived in a more polarized time. At the same time, we've never been told so often who to look up to, who we should respect, what we should do, what's right, what's wrong. And a lot of it is just bullshit. A lot of it is stuff that just gives people these answers that it's almost like you can give somebody a template in how to be a leader now. And there's also a lot of, I think, issues now where we criticize leaders without criticizing the led. And leaders in general are a manifestation of the led, right? Like they lead with the consent of the governed. And so I think that we look at like this great man theory, and a leader should be a servant, and they should be charismatic, and they should make the right decisions. Well, what about the people that have done the quote unquote right things for the wrong reasons? Are they any better than the ones that have done the wrong things for the right reasons? Right. And so like, I think there's aspects of what I'm going to talk about in this book without giving it away that people might be familiar with. Like if they've read Conscious Coaching and they heard a little bit about dark-sided leadership and what have you, will there be some of that in there? Yeah. Leadership's a full contact sport, and you can't lead people in a vacuum. I think there's going to be some people that really hate this book. I think that this book is going to make people think probably quite a bit. It's going to be heavier in a way. And so people that just want, I'm sorry, and it's no disrespect to the guy, he's a legend, but if people want like a John Maxwell book or a 13 Principles to Lead with Passion or a 5 Ways to Be Positive and Leader, like, don't buy it. Don't, run. Like, don't come to our stuff in general. This is not that. It'll be very, very disappointing. But if you're an underdog who's made a lot of mistakes, sometimes you don't even feel worthy of leadership. Sometimes you don't even want to put your own self out there because you're freaked out about skeletons in your closet and whatever, and you feel like you'd be more likely to get canceled than you would to get applauded, then I think you'll like this book, because it is about the gray area of things and the reality that, yeah, you got to do some times in leadership sometimes that people don't agree with. But if you want everybody to agree with you, and the sad thing is you can't even sell ice cream anymore, because if you want to sell ice cream, everybody will like you. Nope. Well, you don't have soy free or dairy free, or you don't have this. Like, and it's just like effective leadership is not one size fits all. So I don't want to give too much away, but hopefully I've told you who it's not for. Definitely not for people that want just like the daily dose of things that they can go out and tell their team so they don't have to question themselves. This is a book for people that want to question themselves a little bit and have some tough conversations.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's going to make a lot of people really uncomfortable, which is exactly what we want them to do. Yeah,
otherwise it's not worth it. Like, great art of any kind, and I'm not saying my book's going to be great, but I just mean like great art should be polarizing. Not everybody should agree with it. It should even be something where like maybe some people hate me for it for a while, and then 5 years later, they're like, yo, this was good. That happened with Conscious Coaching. There was a guy that I get along with really well now, great guy. But I mean, he essentially called me he called me an awful person, a cult leader, said my family should be ashamed, like wrote this on Amazon. And I had a chat with him about it because I knew somebody who knew him. And I'm not above calling somebody and be like, really, dude? You know, like, what's this about? And he was like, listen, I tried writing a book and it didn't go well. And I'm a little pissed off and bitter about that. And I saw your book a lot and that pissed me off more. And I'm like, that's understandable, but think about where this is coming, you know, from. And so, yeah, I'm in a better position in my life to accept that kind of criticism. I'm not for everybody.
So it's interesting. Obviously, you have a very, it's growing, a personal brand, book, 2 books now, potentially coming out soon. I'm putting that out there so that you hurry up.
What did you say?
I'm putting that out there.
I know, but what did you say prior that it's going to be done soon?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be done soon, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like late, we might go a different publishing route with it. So later this year, sometime, it might not always be up to us. It might be like next year. So if somebody wants to write a competing book to try to shit on our launch, there you go. You know, have at it.
Yeah, selfishly, I'm just looking for something new to read. But, you know, obviously, and you just mentioned this, that you've dealt with critics. You know, has your way of dealing with, or how have you learned to deal with critics? How has that changed throughout your evolution into this, you know, new space that you've been in?
Yeah. So this is another one that I'll steal as an example of the music industry, because when I was trying to learn how to deal better with critics in a healthier way, you know, I tried to listen to interviews of other people that had been heavily criticized about stuff, just to kind of, because again, I've never really had a mentor that's walked me through this process, right? Like I've essentially had 5 new jobs in the last 5 years just within art of coaching, and I've had to navigate it. And I remember one of them said something that held to me really quickly. They were talking about if you create an album today, let's say you, Ali, put out a music album today, a lot of reviews now, since the internet's, you know, advanced to what it is, are about who's first to review it. In the past, like the New York Times or things like that would get copies of an album first. They'd have time to listen to it before the mainstream public, and then they'd put it out, right? And so what this musician had said is, you know, I can't take critics seriously now because it can take me 3-4 years to create an album, yet they'll have a review out that day. Like that day. And it's like, there's no way. Like, yeah, you could have listened to the album in a day, but there's no way you could have picked up on all the little musical nuances of the lyrics and the instrumentals and the way this was threaded and all the metaphors and what have you that I was using. That took me 3 years to create, and you're going to review it in a day. Like, and so, you know, that's the same thing here. The material that has shaped this book has in some way, shape, or form been in my brain or been discussed, you know, for over 4 years, you know, because I talk about some things in presentations and that'll make it in there. Some brand new stuff makes it in there, all that. So for somebody to try to criticize me that maybe, let's say they read a few pages of it, or they listened to a friend kind of describe it, or maybe they listened to it on Audible once, or, you know, they kind of like are doing that thing where they're listening 3 times speed, or they're those people that want to read a book a week, so they're flipping through it. You can never know what that book is about. And especially if you're somebody that's never written a book, if you've never sat down, written a book, the agony of knowing what to put in, what to leave out, the agony of knowing what it's like when you're on chapter 13 and, oh shit, you just now thought of a better story for chapter 5. But if you go back and change that story in chapter 5, you're going to have to change 7 through 8. And that's fine if you're like a George R.R. Martin or Stephen King, where your job, you're paid in advance, right? They're given 6-figure advances just to write the best book. That's another thing. Like, people don't understand, like the Ryan Holidays and those, like people like that, they're given an advance that can be $300,000, $500,000, $600,000 or more. They have a team of editors, a team of research assistants in some scenarios, a team of graphic editor. Like, I am doing this in addition to speaking, in addition to having a doctorate, no advance, nothing. I can't just go back and change all that. And so if somebody hasn't been in that position where they're like juggling all these things, they're trying to balance the research, they're trying to do this. And I think we all know, we've all been asked to tell a story about a certain time in our life and it didn't come to us. And then 3 weeks later, we're like, oh, that would have been a perfect one. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night, is like when my editor is like, hey, do you have a better story here? I'm like, shit, like I'm sure I do. I can't think of it right now, right? Especially during COVID, where like you're not interacting with the world as much. Like when I'm out teaching and coaching and doing all those things at normal speed, stories and things and life events come to me in a flash, and it's easy to put that in there. Now it's like you got to do a lot of recall. But yeah, that's why I don't really take critics seriously that much anymore, because half of them 99% of them have never done anything of that magnitude. They don't read it with the same level of discernment, or they go into it already deciding they're not liking it, right? That's a lot of critics. Like, oh, I don't like Ali, I'm going to read her book. Well, I'm already now reading your book with a skewed view because something about Ali rubs me the wrong way. So people have already made up their mind half the time, whether they like, by the time I announce the book, some people will have already made up their mind whether they like it or not, even without reading a page.
Do you buy into the idea that there's no such thing as bad publicity?
Well, not today. In general, yeah, I think it's better. And Robert Greene talks about this. It's better to be talked about in some capacity than to be ignored, but definitely not in today's culture, right? With the context of like cancel culture, or like some aspects of the Me Too movement, which is it's great for many reasons, but just like anything, it can go way overboard, just like any movement. There's not a movement under the sun there's not a tool, a thing, an object, a word that cannot also be weaponized by people that don't have and you and I talked about this, right? Like, I'm terrified as a dude in today's society about this kind of stuff. And I've never admitted this on the air. Like, I could go speak tomorrow in Dallas, Texas, and maybe like I had to run, right? Like, unfortunately, a family member of mine just got diagnosed with cancer, right? So this is a dramatic example, but let's say I had to run because I got to get home because I'm getting on a flight and this is real. We are going to try to go visit her before, something happens. And what if all of a sudden somebody that's read one of my books feels jilted or jaded that I didn't sign it, or like they thought I blew past them and there was something else, or like maybe something I said was misinterpreted. And then the next thing you know, I'm on social media. I don't think that you're innocent until proven guilty anymore. I think that anybody can say what they want at any point in time. And the reality is most people aren't going to come to your defense because most people don't want their lives to get uprooted. So in some instances, yes, in certain times, and P.T. Barnum was a big believer in that as well. But like now I don't believe that. I think that it's okay. I'll be very fine if I write this book and finish my doctorate, and then I can kind of disappear for a while. I don't need people talking about me all the time. I don't want that. I want people talking about the work and hopefully the impact it made, but definitely not me.
Speaking of P.T. Barnum, quick plug, The Greatest Showman is, hot take, one of the best movies ever created.
So I haven't seen it, but not a manly thing to admit. There is a song that my wife, because Liz loves it. There's a song like, when I lay me down, like I don't know how it goes, but it's like something the kid sees colors in his mind. And I heard it for the first time right when I became a father, and I was holding Bronson as a baby in my arms, and I heard that. And it was very much like the Grinch Stole Christmas when he like feels tears for the first time. I bawled, and I just like looked at my son, who I hope grows up and has incredibly big dreams, and I cried my eyes out. And so I have to see it at some point, but man, that song, if I had to cry in a movie right now, hearing that song would make me tear up immediately. And I think it was just a timing thing. Like if I heard it when I was like training, I'd turn this off. When you hear that, when you're looking at your firstborn child, you're like, oh, that's the gas.
Well, that's why context is everything. But usually you're the one giving me movie suggestions and homework. So I'm going to give you a movie homework. You and Liz need to watch that.
When you come down and visit, you will do it. We'll do it.
Okay. All right. We'll have a sing along.
We'll bring your microphone. We'll do karaoke. I'm a big karaoke guy. You haven't asked me that question yet. That's some people don't know. I'm a big karaoke guy.
Go-to karaoke song.
Easy. Business. Eminem. I can't sing for shit, but I can rap. And if you can rap, you can put on a bit of a show. I won't ever just be like, let's go do karaoke tonight. But if somebody wants to do karaoke and they're like, get up there, and I'll be like, no, I eventually will. And I'll rap, but I'm not like, like, look at me, I'm going to throw down. But that, or I sang one time, hot take, I sang Drew Hill, How Deep Is Your Love for Me at a all-inclusive bar in Cancun when I was 21. And somehow I won. And I think it was a pity thing because I can't sing like Cisco.
I feel like I could see you in a future life at a piano bar, just sitting there, taking tips, listening to people, and then just like pulling out some bars and just go in full rap mode.
I loved 90s hip hop and R&B. Yeah, I just did. I loved like even Montel Jordan and all that stuff. I loved, that was like the TRL era, that was TRL. And that was just like good. There were some good soulful, like, think about that. Even in rap, you had artists like Debrat and like Lil Kim and Missy Elliott instead of like Cardi B. Like Missy Elliott was good, and I want to know secretly, like, what does Missy Elliott think of like Cardi B and the drama in that now? I don't know, but every genre has got its things, right?
Yeah. Okay. This is actually funny because it's playing into my next question. So obviously, if you've listened to this episode, it's pretty obvious that music has been a big influence on your life. Outside of other life experiences, relationships, work, etc., what else has been an influence in your life?
Aside from music, what else has been a pretty big influence?
Or maybe here's a better question. Like, what other hobbies do you think have contributed to skill in your domain?
What other hobbies?
Routine? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think just, music was one of definitely the biggest influences because that's the only thing I had control over when I was hospitalized. They controlled what you watched and you read. They couldn't control what music you listened to. And so there was that. Hobbies wise, I'll take this in a different direction. If there's one thing that I really miss right now, that was a fun hobby that it kind of rekindled. I didn't want to I got very tired of being in charge of a lot of things, right? Like when you speak, when you coach, when you run a business, all that, you're in charge a lot. And I don't always want to be in charge. And so that's when I did, and this was after we had created the apprenticeship, but I started doing improv, and there was an improv comedy place that we'd go to. This is another thing. Like if you come to a city that I'm in and you actually want to hang out with me, don't ask me like to come to coffee with you. Like coffee, I can take or leave. Let's go to a comedy club. It's a surefire way to get me to hang out with you. I love comedy clubs. And so we found a little hole in the wall improv comedy place. We went to support a local theater, small business kind of thing. I mean, it was really small. When you come to Atlanta, man, I think they're closed down now. Otherwise, we would totally take you. But I think there's probably another one that's open. But they did like an open mic night and all this. And then they did like a 6-week course. But I still wish I had that, to be honest. Like so much, it has to be taken so serious, right? Like between the research I do for my book and my doctorate and the business and all that, I just want to have a night where it's probably like people with golf or whatever. I want to have a night where like I have 5 friends, different fields that could just go do comedy improv stuff. I do, because there's the creativity of it. There's the camaraderie of it. You do have to take aspects of it serious. It's not like whose line is it anyway? Like there are some tight rules, but I really want that. I've never had that in my life. I've never lived in a city with like 5 or 6 good friends that wanted to go do something. And that's very much something I want in my life.
Okay. So you've mentioned improv and karaoke. Besides working out, don't give me that, what else do you do for fun or to relax?
Well, now after saving up for like 5 years, I'm a hot tub fiend. I always wanted a hot tub. Big hot tub guy. I don't know what it is.
Can I get a hot tub?
I mean, seriously. And a little bit of it is my physiology and everything. Just like hydrostatic pressure and heat have always done really, really good things for my body. I'm a very tightly bound guy. And for all the talk of meditation and breathing, systemically, those things just don't always have the impact on me that like taking a walk in nature does or sitting in the hot tub. And so like literally we call our hot tub the think tank because all like the stuff will come to me in that. But I think getting in nature, I'm a big, as lame as it sounds, I like taking walks. Of course, I like reading. I think the biggest stress reliever I took up, and again, this is something that is pretty uncommon. I actually started playing video games with one of my neighbors every now and then. We go through streaks where we'll play consistently for a week and then we won't play for months or, whatever. We're not like, hey, log into World of Warcraft and let's spend 3 hours. It's not like that. But just the mindlessness of interacting in something that you can't make work is huge. Yeah. And I think that's another reason why like a lot of stuff out there just doesn't resonate with me now. Like now everybody's hobbies are cold showers and productivity journals. And like, I even read something the other day about an author that everybody would know. They're like one of the most viral authors and TED Talk people. They literally made a comment that like no part of their day is not based around self-improvement. And I just think that's lame. I'm sorry, that's lame. And like, I feel like those have to be, I guess I shouldn't talk about this in the context of also talking about cancel culture and everything else, but like intimacy is really important to me. And if every moment of your life is so concerned about self-improvement, like what is intimacy like with your partner? Like if you can't, like, I just always feel like that. I'm like, what a boring person. Every single part of your life and every moment is so like, they don't watch TV. They don't do this. Literally it's either reading or whatever. And that's fine. I've been there, but like at some point in your life, like if you're at a certain age and you just can't turn off ever, you're wound pretty tight and nothing. There's a great book called Greatness Can't Be Planned. I have to shout out to my friend Jared Markovitz for telling me about that. But like, and it starts off kind of slow or whatever, but a lot of things that are really well done are not meticulously put together with rigidity. You know, they're accidents. And like, I've joked about it. My next book could flop. And then if I write a fun book about like people watching in airports, and maybe I write that in like a whimsical way, and that goes on to be like a New York Times bestseller, I'll be like, I'm not surprised, whatever, you know?
It's so funny you say that. I've taken up a lot more cooking and baking recently.
Ooh, I love baking.
And I know that people, that's actually a more common hobby than not, but I just find that it really brings out my creative side. Like I can I'm not such a baker because it's so precise and, you really have to follow a recipe, but like cooking, oh man, just like that's so therapeutic for me. Just get me in front of a stove, give me random objects. This is funny. Megan and I will play like Top Chef or whatever that, show is where you have the basket.
Yeah.
During quarantine, we would go to the grocery store and we'd pick out random special ingredients for the other person. And then we'd come home and we would have to have like 30 minutes to put those together in a meal, right? Like Chopped, I think.
Yeah. Chopped is good. Yeah.
Yeah. And oh my God, the meal we came up with, I think it was like a cactus beet quesadilla with like cow ear or something marinated on the side. It's like fun, and I agree with you. I think that we take ourselves a little bit too seriously these days.
I think the thing that you brought up a good point. One of the things that we used to do that I miss the most, and anybody that knew me when I lived in Phoenix will be like, hell yeah, we used to throw the most magnificent, and that's the only term you can use for it. We used to throw the most magnificent fire pit Fridays ever. These were these things where we had this gas fire pit in our backyard and whatever. And at the end of a week, you were kind of too tired to go out. You didn't want to go like downtown or to a bunch of bars or whatever. And I'm not like much of a drinker anyway. I like wine and what have you, but I'm not like gonna like go pound them, and you wanted to do something social, but you didn't want to get crazy. So we had a simple rule. Anybody could come over to the house as long as they brought something to either eat, to share with the group, or drink. So we would have people, and this was when I was at API, we'd have people from our HR department. We'd have coaches. We had Dan Paff. I think Stu McMillan came one time. We had some athletes. We had all these people. And these were like adult athletes, right? Like for any people out there that are like, oh, it was just a welcoming environment. And our two of our neighbors worked for the FBI. And like we would have like like the hip hop dance revolution, or not like the dance revolution, like where you tap your feet, but like the Wii dance where your arms and all that would move. We'd have that going. We'd have a fire pit going. We'd have music going. People would be in the kitchen. People would be everywhere. And sometimes you'd stay till like 3 a.m. and you could see the night sky because of Phoenix lighting ordinance. You could see it perfect. And the International Space Station would like come over where our house was a lot. So you could see that. But one time I remember walking in, and one of our neighbors she had her like classic FBI hooded sweatshirt on. She was like dancing to like So Functified by DeBrat and like getting down. And then people were out there like basically singing a sea shanty by the fire pit. And I looked at Liz and I'm like, this is incredible. And I miss that, like the Fire Pit Fridays, that was a hobby in and of itself. Just having that kind of like low key social community was huge. And I'll do that again. We'll eventually get to a place where, the house we live in or our forever home or whatever will be built so that Fire Pit Fridays can commence.
We just got a fire pit. Well, a fire table.
Oh, and, fire tables are great. That was my rap name in high school, Fire Table.
Fire Table. Okay, so things are slightly different for you because you are a father these days. Father. So Bronson will have to come out to the fire table.
He'll dance on the Fire Table.
I hope so. That's a little dangerous.
That's his middle name.
Cancel culture. Okay, so serious question though. Has fatherhood changed you at all?
This will disappoint people because no. And I don't mean no because I think a lot of people say yeah because it's made me realize what's important. I'm more protective with my time, all that stuff. A lot of that happened for me after I got out of the hospital, right? Like when you nearly die or like you just face some weird stuff in life at a really young age and, just some stuff my parents told me early that really inculcated urgency into me. I've always been wired for that. I've always been very protective of my time. I mean, maybe it's amplified that, but I think where it's changed me, it's made me a little bit softer so yes, but no, where it has is there's certain things I'm not going to do now because I have him. I'm not going to go I'm totally the guy that would go skydiving or do this. Or if I was in Mexico or the Bahamas and somebody wanted to go cliff jumping or what have you, some of that stuff I'd be reluctant on. Ironically, even though I have a little bit of a fear of heights, I was far less scared of jumping out of a plane than I would cliff diving, because cliff diving, you don't know what the hell's under there and you could slip on the rock. There's a lot of variables, but I would give a shit a lot less about that then when it was just me, where now I got a kid, you know what I mean? And so I have less to prove. And there were times where I'd go to military bases to work with certain units and they'd want you to do their O course or whatever. And some of them were innocent enough, like a high ropes course, whatever. But there was one where they wanted you to crawl inverted on this cargo net over a pool where it was a 40-foot fall and you'd fall into a pool, but you still don't know how you're going to fall. And there's all this kind of shit. And they kind of give you the, well, if you don't do this, we're not going to listen to you. And I'm like, I got a kid at home. You know what I mean? That ain't going to happen. What am I going to do? Walk around with a broke neck or a broke back and be like, hey, they accepted me. So I think with those kinds of things, the physical risks I take, yeah. But with business and things like that, I mean, I run a family business with no safety net where my wife's employed and mommy and daddy aren't going to come bail us out with money, if that and we don't want that either. Even if they had they had that money, we don't want that. And so, yes and no, but I'd say more on the physical side of things, even with training, I'll go box, I'll spar, I'll do all those kinds of things. Do I need to 1RM squat, 1RM deadlift, all that? No, because I don't want to be so... I want to be somebody that can do incredibly useful things with my son. I want to be able at the spur of the moment, be able to jump up and whatever. So I'll still lift heavy. I'll still do that kind of stuff. But I don't have as much to prove anymore. Cause what do I give a shit if somebody and that would happen, Ali, cause I'd go to clinics and people are like, oh, Mr. Strength Coach. And they'd want to have a lift off-a-thon. And you know this, in strength and conditioning clinics, people will want to lift at the booth and whatever. I'm like, God, I'm going to go get fucking breakfast. You know what I mean? I'll do my training at home. I'm not here to compete in a powerlifting meet. This is weird, And so, yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, I was also kind of thinking about it because, and maybe there's two parts to this answer, but, obviously your life is getting more and more public. And maybe that's a good thing because, like you said, your son will have something to look back on and there's the public record of you. But, how do you maintain that sense of privacy? And is there anything that you think about when you're putting yourself out there? Is my family being put into the spotlight when maybe they don't want to be? Or is that even something you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I there's a limit now. I mean, there's just some things that I get worn out. After I do this podcast, this is the second podcast I've done today. I'll just not do podcasts for a while. And that makes some people mad because they want me to be on their podcast and they don't even, when I say no, not right now, they don't even really ask why, right? They just get all offended that I'm not on their podcast. It's everybody's cool and encourages you to say no more unless it's to them. I don't put a ton of my family stuff out there. Like I'll put pictures of me and Bronson, and I'll catch Liz in funny situations or whatever, cause she's a goof, but like there's a limit. I think that also, I'd like to think we still live in a world where if people get to know you, that there should be some loyalty there. I think of situations recently where certain people were accused of some stuff, and these were also people that were highly secretive in general. Like they kind of were very big on, well, I don't do interviews, I don't do conferences, I don't do this. And then I think they were surprised when people didn't come to their defense. Well, it's like nobody knew you. Like how can anybody defend you if people only knew you in that bubble? I'm very open. I never once claimed to be perfect. I never once claimed to have it all figured out. I never once to claim to say things that I wish like, I could put my foot in my mouth or whatever. Like, but I don't know. I didn't have role models like that to look up to. Everybody put on a facade. So I would like to think me putting myself out there hopefully makes people more relatable, in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know. I mean, what's your perception of it? And you can be honest.
I think that.
Do I share too much?
No, absolutely not. Actually, I was asking it more because I'm trying to think. I would always try to put myself in your shoes or whoever's shoes that I'm asking the question to. And, I think that it's going to play more into your favor than not into your favor, because like you said, now this stuff is going to outlive you. Right. And Bronson's going to grow up knowing exactly how you felt about things. And there's a very public record of what you've done.
He's got a time capsule now, good or bad.
That's so cool. I mean, this is funny, but like we hid a shoebox of like, when I was a kid, of things that were going to be memorable to us in 20 years. And it's still buried in my front yard in some, house in Palo Alto that we don't even live in anymore. And like the idea of like going back and seeing that in whatever it is now, it's probably coming up pretty soon. It's really cool. And if I were Bronson, knowing the integrity behind the things that you're doing, it's not like you're, some jackass that's like putting bad stuff out there. I would be incredibly proud. So I just wonder if that's ever something that you even think about, or if it's just when you have the right values behind the content you're putting out there, it's just natural.
Yeah. I mean, there are times where I just want to be left alone, but I'm also not like famous. You know what I mean? I'm not like one of these people that I have to have like a body double or anything like that. I think there is truth that like nothing brings you peace but the triumph of principles at some point. I just think that having a time capsule for my little guy, and then hopefully from people that have been there from the jump, there's people like, there's too many to name, but there's a lot of, and if I name some, I'm going to piss others off. So I just won't do it. But there's people that can go back and listen to podcasts of mine from 2011 or 12 when I was on other podcasts in 2013 and hear me now. Like I would hope that people would just be like, this dude hasn't changed. He hasn't changed a lot. And like in terms of base principles, I know earlier I said, well, of course you're going to change. There are going to be some things that change, but I'm talking about in terms of the way that I at least like handle myself. I'm just trying to figure this out. And we'll see if loyalty really exists. I think that's the test for me. I wonder if when inevitably I fall on hard times, if people will really show up for me, because I know in the first time I ever fell on like truly hard times in my life, when I was in the hospital, I was homecoming royalty and all these things. The next year I was in the hospital, didn't hear from one friend. Not one out of an entire 2,000 person high school, whatever. And so I have like, I think one of the most important traits anybody can have is self-reliance. But I think that you shouldn't also have to have that, like, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, you shouldn't have to rely on that all the time. Like, I wonder if I'll ever be able to turn off and see like somebody come to my defense. That is like, I do want some stands, again, to use another Eminem reference, like people that have a healthy loyalty to something because your work speaks to them. Cause I've never had that. There's been a lot of situations in my life where I'm like, really? I mean, I'll never forget even once, and I'll call it out. I was at the U.S. Olympic Symposium, and Tim Pelot put it on, and Tim and I have always had great conversations, right? So like, this is nothing at Tim. We've had great conversations, sometimes challenging conversations, but there was a guy on stage, I think his name was Dr. Nicholas Pierce, really, really good guy. Man, he gave a great talk. And he was talking about the importance of branding and whatever. And I said, he had asked a question to the crowd about, building a brand, and people didn't raise their hands. They didn't. I don't care who says it. I know people will say there's always room for two truths. Bullshit. Nobody raised their hands. People were not buying into this concept that he was talking about. And he's like, no, is this not important? I go, well, you're talking to the wrong audience about branding. He's like, why is that? I'm like, a lot of strength coaches are very much against that. They think branding is selling out and whatever. And he was like, is that true? Crickets. And I remember Keenan Robinson was one of the only ones that stood up, and there was Dan Noble was too. And they were just like, nah, this is true. And I remember there was this board too, where people were writing up books that all coaches should read. And my book hadn't made it up there and whatever. I care less. It wasn't a crowd that was necessarily I was definitely an odd man out. There was not a lot of other people in that crowd that have kind of put themselves out there. A lot of them have very great positions in wonderful organizations and pro sports teams. And there's constraints where a lot of them can't have a brand, but I definitely kind of felt like the bad guy at this conference because I had written a book and had a brand. And I remember somebody was like, this is bullshit. How I know at least 5 people in this audience that have read your book and loved it, and they didn't put it up there and they stood up and did it. That was one of the only times I felt like, all right, somebody actually saw this stuff happen and they had enough of it. And that's fine. I'm an adversity drive. I don't give a shit. I don't want everybody being like, oh, Brett's the best thing ever. That's all. That would scare me. If everybody agreed with me and everybody liked me, I'd be scared shitless. But the point is I think that you've got to put yourself out there a little bit. And when you do that, you see who will really stand up for you when the chips are down. Very much like Heath Ledger's Joker. He's like, they'll show you who they really are. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat you alive, and the Joker's right. That's the best damn character in any movie.
It's fascinating. I was thinking as you were saying that, do you think that there's any truth to the idea that when you have a lot of success and others in your field, not that they're not having success, but they're having different success, they are maybe a little bit envious of the space that you're pushing into and maybe wish that they were. And maybe when you fall on hard times, that's when you might actually see somebody stand up for you because finally you're human again.
Yeah, but I think that's natural. And I've had that too, right? I mentioned Brene Brown earlier on, or some of these authors that they have literary agents that, Matthew McConaughey writes a book. Matthew McConaughey's agent gets him on Rogan, gets him on this, gets him on that. They get him on all the major podcasts, all the media tours. No wonder, those books are always going to be bestsellers. These people have teams. I've never had that. So let me be honest. I felt that same kind of envy and sometimes resentment and things like that. It's a human thing where, I remember even somebody saying I think most self-published books, most books in general sell less than 100 copies, and conscious coaching will push, a couple 100,000 here at some point. And I remember somebody saying do you have a literary agent now? And I'm like, no. And they're like, how? And I go, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you usually can't, I can't submit. If somebody wants to write a book, they can't just submit it to HarperCollins or Penguin or whatever. You have to have a literary agent that does that. And you don't find a literary agent. Usually they find you. And they find you if you've had a book that did really well or a TED Talk that went well. This is not a system that is made for and then a lot of these people will only work with authors. They won't work with authors / academics, authors / consultants. You've got to be an author or nothing else. And so there's times where when I write this next book, nobody's getting me on Rogan or Rich Roll. Nobody's getting me on Tim Ferriss. Nobody's going to get Oprah or the Today Show or any, I've seen stuff on the Today Show about how to feel better, dress better. That's a New York Times best-selling book. So I want to be very clear. I am just as petty. I am just as envious sometimes. I am just as, because I don't expect the path to be easy, but sometimes you're it should be easier. I wrote a damn book. It did pretty well. I'm grateful for that. Somebody come make this one. Don't make me do this to say the second book just as hard, because I never know if my audience is going to show up. And just because people have budgets, they have different things. That's not a character thing. So I think it's only natural. I think here's the issue, and I'll put this part succinctly. Like when people think it's their time or that somebody's stealing their shine or that, this person shouldn't have success or whatever, like that's a loser mentality. Like when you're thinking of when there were some people that were like, oh, you're 30, you shouldn't have a book. You've only been in this field this long. They were going through, Ali, such detailed levels of thought that I was like, yo, like you should be using that brain power to solve some real problems. Like I'm not your problem. Like if you're spending that much time thinking about me and rationalizing why that book shouldn't have done well or why I shouldn't be speaking or whatever, like you need to be channeling that elsewhere. So I think this entitlement loser mentality is really scary for some people and they don't realize they have it. Like you're a coach, you're a leader, like buck up and take care of your own shit. You know what I mean? Don't be coming at me and saying I'm the reason for you. Oh, because somebody read my book, they're not going to like your book. No, make something better. This is the reason why my brother and I didn't get along for a long time is my brother, like no matter when he listens to this, he'll admit it. He's admitted it once at our wedding, was very competitive with me. I am not competitive with my brother. You know what I mean? I'm just not. Like maybe when we were little kids and playing football or whatever, I hope my brother becomes president. I hope he's a billionaire. I hope he has my last name. But because little brothers are supposed to be competitive with big brothers and I wasn't, whatever, it like pissed him off, for some reason. And, I just think if you're competitive with me, you're focusing on the wrong shit because I have no interest in competing with somebody that wants to create coaching of art or art of conversation or art of coaching like have at it, bro. You know what I mean? I'm sure you'll get some people that follow you and like you. That's great.
I think that was very well put, but I hope you're not looking for easy because we're going to finish with some rapid fire.
Rapid fire, go.
Rapid fire.
I want to do this with you. I want you to, we're like, God, can I want to reveal something, but I can't, but at some point, we're going to, I want to put you on the defensive. Anyway, go with your rapid fire because I won't. I'll be a gentleman.
We'll do a hot seat very shortly.
Hot seat.
We'll reverse hot seat.
Yeah.
Okay. What's one question you wished people would stop asking you or think more about before they did ask you?
What books to read or what what path should I take? I think it seems like a good question on the surface, but they're not understanding there's layers to that question. And if you ask something that broad and that general to somebody that doesn't know you, what you're actually telegraphing is you're not ready. You're not ready. Like you don't understand what you're asking. Like, I would rather have you say, hey, coach, I have a lot of trouble with difficult conversations. I tend to get defensive. What book should I read? Or, hey, coach, I tend to struggle with a little bit of self-awareness. For an example, there's times where I get irrationally angry at other people, even though I do the same thing. What book should I read? Or, hey, coach, I really want to work with paraplegics. From a performance standpoint, I want to help these people live a better life and more autonomous life within the constraints they have. What job should I take? What internship? But when you just come at me and say, what book should I read or what this, and it's so broad, you're telling me that you're not thinking, like you're showing me you just don't think critically. And I know that'll piss some people off, but it's just true. Ask a better question. And that's a lazy ass question to just say, what book should I read? You're assuming I know you, your struggles, like how egotistical of me that would be to tell you who I don't know anything about what books to read. What am I, God? Yeah, here, read this one. This is going to change your life, guy or gal, I don't know. So ask a better question. I love you, but ask a better question.
Well, it's like when people ask you, like, where should I go to eat? Well, it's like, what do you want to eat?
Julio's Bar and Grill. Like, where do you like, where should I go to eat? Got it. What kind of sushi do you like? Well, I like this, but I like actual raw sushi. I don't like tempura with 8 pounds of spicy mayo, right? Like, daddy wants that raw. That's an inside joke. I don't refer to myself as daddy. We had to throw it in there as an inside joke.
Is that going to be the audiogram for this episode?
Yeah. Oh my God. I just realized that could be taken the wrong way. Oh my God. I did not cancel that. Cancel that one. We can't edit that out. We're not going to edit it out. Screw it. Leave it in.
No. There's no cancel culture.
There's going to be a deep fake of that someday. Just, I hope somebody turns it into a funny rap song. God, I can't believe I just said that. We're talking about sushi.
It's all good. That's why people know this is real. Okay. What's one question people aren't asking you that you wish they would?
What they're not asking me that they wish they would. This is funny. It's my favorite question to ask other people, and I'm totally not prepared for this because We have like, what's something they should be asking me, but they're not asking me, but they should. I think a lot of it we covered in Blind Spot. It was just like how to get out of my own way, and how to this is a tough one, because I usually, what's something they're not asking, but
the tables have turned.
Well, it was just definitely, I think we covered a lot of it in the course of Blind Spot, and so like I'm an empty cachet now, where it was just like, it would be how to build an ethics base, like how to market yourself in the right way, because for so long people didn't want to do that, but you have to, because it's like anything, you got to learn to fish for yourself, and you got to learn how to, like, nobody's going to just like come find you. You're going to have to learn to speak about yourself in an ethical way. Somebody that they're not asking me, but they should.
Like, what's the question that you would see in your DMs and you would be like, oh, hell yeah, I want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I always tell guests that it's okay to have a little bit of silence. So let me have some silence. Quit peppering me. The best one that I've got in my DMs recently is, I think how do you face some of the biggest issues with yourself? One guy asked me one time, how do I get, he basically just said, like, he didn't like himself. That he knows he does some good work, and he knows he does things that help people, but he can't stand to hear himself, and he can't stand to, and I actually understand that sometimes. And so I think anything about getting out of your own way, dealing with your own demons. I say one line from our book is, we're taught from a young age not to talk to strangers. It's no reason or no wonder we don't know ourselves very well. So I get really annoyed when people send, I shouldn't say annoyed. Sometimes I get frustrated because I want to help them understand a different perspective. When people say they have issues with other people, because we all have issues with other people, that's fine. But tell me more about, like, what you're doing wrong. Like, hey, I have this employee. He's kind of a pain in the ass. Admittedly, I've addressed it in the past like this. I just want to see more honesty about people's own stuff that they suck at a little bit. So yeah, I would say that, like, how they can overcome some more aspects of their own thing, as opposed to pointing the finger all the time.
What's something unrelated to what you do for work that you're nerding out about right now?
I think it's always some level of outer space. I love outer space, but I've gotten a lot more interested, and this is like just probably influencing my father coming on late. Man, it's fascinating to listen to financial market news, and not because I'm like day trading and doing the GameStop thing, but it really is true. What my dad said at a young age hit me. The stock market is a snapshot of the psychology of the world, meaning, like, if you just turn on, like, sometimes CNBC and things like that, they'll talk about things other companies are doing or innovating and why you should look out for them. And then you start thinking, like, why would that company be doing that at this point in time? And then they tell you what they're doing because something's changing in the political landscape, and that teaches you the interconnectivity of this stuff. So I think, like, understanding that we live in a network world, not networking, right? Like a network world of, like, the cause and effects of things are so seemingly disparate now, more so than ever. And if you just pay attention to finance and aeronautics and engineering and all these kinds of things, you'll start to find common tie-ins and grooves with stuff. So I'm just a really big nerd. And I also went back to, like, a Marvel kick, WandaVision, which is something I had no interest in watching whatsoever, but given my affinity for storytelling, I wanted to see what they were doing with this. Like, what is this thing? It's a black and white rerun. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, it's a deeper thing. Like, I went into something totally ready to hate it, and now I'm like, holy shit. Here's a question you didn't ask me. Best question would be, if you could spend a day right now with anyone doing anything, right now, without a question, it would be Jon Favreau at Marvel Studios seeing, hey, how did you put together 20 years of stories with tremendous continuity, knowing that there's fan people out there that are insane about comics and whatever. They had to create something with the Marvel Cinematic Universe that appeased people like my mom, who had no idea what any of this shit was. Me, to some degree. I was not an Avengers person. I was an X-Man person. I didn't know a lot of these storylines. But then also comic book nerds. I want to spend a day with Jon Favreau at Marvel. I want to see how their business deals go down. I want to figure out what their storyboards look like. That would be the best day ever. So if anybody knows anybody at Pixar or Marvel, I will just shut the hell up. I will wear, like, I'll deliver coffee, I'll do whatever, but like that would be it. And also if I like had, you know, some like last thing on earth, like I would also want to host Saturday Night Live. I would want to host Saturday Night Live and spend some time at Marvel Studios just shutting up and watching how they do things. Saturday Night Live, I wouldn't show up. I'd rock that shit.
What I love about all of that is that it just, you know, I'm a nerd for lateral thinking and just like getting outside of your own domain, your own profession, and learning from other people, learning what other industries are doing and like how much that is actually going to end up changing what you do and making you better. And, you know, I know Art of Coaching is hosting this virtual summit coming up pretty soon, which is literally around this idea, right? Like the speakers, just like going through the list, I'm looking at them. They're incredible. I mean, you have people from finance to strength and conditioning, obviously, to the military.
Or like Andy Leslie from Adidas, who's working like on an innovations department of things that won't even come to the market till maybe 2030. You know, like these people are working on projects that are so beyond scope of things that we don't even know. You know, Carl Coward has worked with Richard Branson, and then at the same time owns, like, the company owns one of the biggest landfills in the world, and then is creating one of the the first like green mine. Like these things, like I can't fathom how, like, what the hell are these deals like? I want to be in the room. I want the Hamilton line. I want to be in the room where it happens with some of those deals. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't be more excited for this thing that's coming up, because I think it's going to encapsulate everything we talked about today. And as we kind of wrap up this hot seat.
It's not like a hot seat. This was like a hot vehicle. This was like a hot plane ride.
Do you feel like sweaty? Like, do you need to take a break?
I mean, we pump in cold air like crazy at night because I am the warmest person on earth. If we could afford it, I would put it down to like 58 degrees. The lowest we can really go is 67, 68. And we also don't want to freeze out Bronson. But I have one of those like Uller things. So like I'm not sweating, but mentally I am, because I know that we covered a lot of stuff that like I may or may not regret saying.
Well, I appreciate it. And I had a ton of fun interviewing you. I hope it was fun to listen to. But yeah, we should do this again.
We should. I want people to take a keen interest in you, because I think that, you know, I'm very careful of who I co-sign. I've learned some things the hard way as a mentor. There have been times where like I thought somebody was really going to go on to do some great things, and they did in their own context and whatever. They're great people and whatever. But like sometimes it was a little too early to kind of like throw my full support behind some folks. Yeah, in different parts of my life, because probably if I was honest, I wish I would have had that support earlier from somebody. Like I never had somebody that had a voice be like, this dude, you got to listen to this dude. So I want to do that. But I am wholeheartedly telling people that like, I am 100% tapping you to do some ridiculous things in this space. And if people aren't familiar with you, they're making a big mistake. You know, it's like Release of the Kraken. It's Release of the Kraken with you and your dulcet tones. So I'm looking forward to people getting to know you on a different level, and I'm grateful to know you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'm just so thankful for our friendship and that you would trust me to come on and do your Ask Me Anything episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you like this, let us know. Please, you know, give us a rating on iTunes, what have you. Tell a friend to tell a friend. These ratings are huge. They make sure we're not buried by some of the bigger celebrity-driven podcasts. It takes you all of 5 seconds. Go into iTunes or the podcast app, scroll down, hit whatever stars you think are worth it. Leave us a review. It matters. It matters. It matters. Sign your asses up for the Art of Coaching Summit. It is artofcoaching.com/summit. If you're listening to this a year from now, make sure you're going to artofcoaching.com. Everything we're doing is always right there. Brett Bartholomew and
Ali Kershner
signing off. Talk to you soon.